I was very fortunate enough to take over some of the reins of Loftus in October last year. And part of my experience has been to learn about some of the brands in Australia. I've not been a party to this before, and so I was very lucky to be parachuted in to SA and come across you guys. It's been fantastic tonight to hear some of the stories and some of the personal experiences and how the brands are built and the relationships that are developed with your customers. Um, and I think Rick's spoken a little bit about what's next for each of our businesses. How do you think technology is going to help drive some of those? I think you mentioned earlier it's all about the experiences and the memories that are being made. But in terms of boots on the ground, Melissa, what do you think to Sean Smith's if one with technology, what's happening next? I know there's a lot of talk about agribusiness in SA particularly.
For us in the immediate future, it's about giving everyone in the business access to more information wherever they are in the world and whatever position they have. So from our warehouse manager to be using technology in the warehouse to be picking and packing orders, to our export manager to be able to access sales data when he's in the UK. And to be real and live data. We've historically, we've had a server on site and we've worked with some very old technology in terms of our software, and that was very hard for people to access the data. And then post that, once everyone has access to this information, I guess it's the conversation about what this information can help us identify where our customers' trends are going in the future, and then can we use any of that technology in what we're going to invest in next, in terms of whether it's a vineyard or whether it's in terms of a different channel for our customers, and how we can deliver the wine and experience, especially for our wine club members, that they have signed up to and experience when they've come to visit us in the tasting room.
Fantastic. So Anthony, I know we've traditionally been a bit of a box shifter for your organisation, where it's all about selling the tin and the infrastructure. And I think recently we developed an application that helped you with some warehousing opportunities that were there, and some
Yep.
overcame some obstacles
Yep.
for you. Was there a little bit of discussion there about what the positives were about it, about the experience of developing software? Because I think it can be a bit hit and miss in terms of trying to get the right thing, and the interpretation of requirements is an opportunity.
Well, I mean, there's so many IT projects that other companies have had where they've effectively failed. It's like a black hole. But in this case, it's come off very well, and because I think it's because there was a fair bit of time spent on getting the people to buy in and understand what they were getting into, but it wasn't a big project really in the scheme of things, but it's gone very well. We're very happy because we've got so many products. We've got like about 250 different unique stock keeping units, so all different sizes and everything like that. And you imagine it's all in a warehouse; it's all got to be picked, and there are different levels and different. So yeah, for us, we had a new warehouse, we had this new software. It's really helped us. Just getting back to the question about branding, I think it's really important that we get as close as we can to the customer. The problem is the retailers want to do the same, and we can use technology to communicate who we are, what we stand for, and why we're special, and we can be authentic about it. We can tell our stories, and I haven't really we harness social media pretty well, but I don't think we've really seen even the early stages yet of what we could be doing with it in terms of giving, expressing who we are, the personality of the company and of us. Because as I said before, people like to buy from people, and that's the best way. Technology is the best way to get into everyone's lives.
Absolutely. And of course, as an organisation, Loftus are a more B2B organisation. We tend to deal with businesses, but of course, all three of you are B2C. You're all dealing with customers. So how does that work in terms of data capture? Obviously, we understand your businesses and some of the limitations around our understanding of those, but your pool of understanding for your consumers is significantly larger. How does technology work in terms of understanding that, particularly if you're dealing through a retailer who's maybe capturing that point of sale data to the exclusion of maybe the understanding that you have. How does that work, Michael?
So for us, it's a really interesting point that obviously the retailer is capturing and having the connection directly with the consumer as they walk in and buy barbecue. They start that relationship. I think for years we've attempted to build the connection with our customers, build a relationship with them via our customer service, via our sort of value-adding services in terms of content, recipes, techniques, tips. You know, today it's more about the Grill Academy, so having people come and have a hands-on experience with us. But as far as technology goes and overcoming or working with the retailer, I think is really the way that we look at this. And so we're building out sort of a universal system with independent retailers of ours that will help their systems integrate with us. So we better understand the consumers that have come into their store, purchased from them. We can help them by processing that data, by helping drive customers to them. But it becomes a sort of a synergistic relationship where their data shared with us becomes more valuable for all of us. And that's the way that we're approaching it.
Do you think as consumers we want a bit more of a touch point directly with the people manufacturing or producing our products? And I know obviously from the wine industry, you've got the cellar doors, you've got the Grill Academy for Weber. And of course, you mentioned earlier that there are people coming along and it personally experiencing picking the strawberries for their product. Do you think that that's what's going to happen continuously for consumers? They want to be more associated with the whole chain, the supply chain, to perhaps the exclusion of the retailers? I mean, obviously there's a place for them.
Yeah, look, I mean, my take on that is that that retailers that don't provide the types of experience that you just talked about, the tasting room, the picking, the Grill Academy, that don't provide those services over and above being a place to buy things, my feeling is that then they are at risk of being overlooked by consumers in time, where they become a really functional part of getting hold of the thing that you want. And so for us, I think, particularly with our retail partners, what we want to do is help them deliver on a Weber experience, but also deliver on that experience ourselves. So building in experience elements into retail, I think, is really important because there's only one Adelaide Grill Academy, but we have hundreds of points of distribution. And so working with our retail partners is a key part of that for me.
I think the retailers, they want to know who the customer is. They don't really want to share that information, right? I mean, I'd like to be able to get the name and address and phone number of every single customer that buys our products, so that I could say, hey, how's it going? Any ideas? Can I talk to you a cent? Maybe get you on some sort of deal where we give you discounts. And that's what wineries are doing as well, I guess.
I noticed that one of your marketing opportunities recently was to rename one of the products. You kind of said this is Paul's sauce or Mark's sauce.
Yep.
Was that an internal development that came about, or was it?
Yeah. Well, this idea about people like to buy from people, that was back in 2013 when we changed our labels. We used to have an old-fashioned green Berenberg label with a Germanic sort of font, and we went to this we rebranded completely, and I think the names, we had names of people on the product. So, for example, Dean's Caramelised Onion. That was an idea that we had to try to sort of express our Australian personality, because our brand promise is to country style products made in our farm kitchen with authentic Australian personality. I think it's really important to understand what you're promising the consumers. And that authentic Australian personality meant having the names of our employees on the products and having a little story, loosely based on real life.
Come on, I believe them.
Yeah. Absolutely. But actually, over time, we found that with jams and sauce, it doesn't work as well. But we've still got quite a few. We've got a Kylie coming through at the moment, which I'm pretty proud of. We're going to have a Kylie with a new product. I can't say what it is yet because it hasn't come out yet, but I reckon that'll sell all right.
So one of the things we did as part of our customer engagement was to develop this Friday afternoon barbecue. We had on our Weber barbecue, of course, and our smoker, perfectly. And Melissa, you came along to one of them recently, and one of the things you did, which was fantastic, was to bring us some wonderful wine. But one of the brands wasn't one of the brands that I was expecting to see on the shelf. It was a Other
No,
Wine Co.
yeah, the Other Wine Co. Yes,
Yeah,
correct.
that was fantastic. And to be honest, cards on the table. My wife has really taken to it, much to much to my wallet's dismay.
Yeah, so the Other Wine Co. is, I guess it's just started off as a little side project, just to look at a few different varieties that Shaw and Smith don't traditionally produce. So we really have only Shaw and Smith as a core 4 varieties, and we have enhanced them by doing some single vineyards wines as well. But the Other Wine Co. was to give the winemaking team an opportunity to do something a bit more creative and to look at those little trends that are happening with the small bars out in the market, those by the glass and, different varieties that people haven't really heard about, but you could be hand-sold by a bartender or a sommelier. So the Other Wine Co., we've got a Cabernet Franc from Kangaroo Island. We've got a Pinot Gris from the Adelaide Hills. We've got a Grenache from McLaren Vale. So we're also doing a few other regions that's not traditionally Shaw and Smith as well. It is available on Hazard Own's website. It is available in our tasting room. It just traditionally hasn't been where we've promoted these wines. We've mostly been, on premise with the bars. But yeah, I think it's nice to try something different every now and then. Especially, we find that people love our brand, but they do want to try something new as well. So it's good to evolve with our customers as well.
It's quite an exciting development, really, isn't it? Because we all spend an awful lot of time and effort in developing our brand, whether it be Weber, Beerenberg, or Loftos, and you've gone and said, well, we're gonna park that brand and we're gonna actually develop a brand that sits alongside it. So it's a bit of a departure.
Yeah, it is, and it's hard. And I wasn't there when the decision was made across the table, but I can't imagine it was an easy one, especially for 2 owners who, put their heart and soul into a brand, and now they have to, stop, reassess and go in a different path, like not completely, but it's a new idea and you embrace with the times. So, we also have a brand down in Tasmania, so that's completely different, going out of South Australia, and how do you grow grapes down there and then bring it back to South Australia and, still produce it and still use the same team. All these things seem difficult, but there's always a way. And, you support our team down in Tasmania as well. And we're connected to them now through, Zoom and through, cloud software. And, I think that's how the businesses are growing these days. You've got to be open to opportunities.
So being in the technology industry, it's often fun to look back on some of the media things. And I don't know if you remember seeing in the Advertiser recently, there was what 2020 would look like, and it was all semi-autonomous people living in bubble cars, but like the Jetsons, meet the Jetsons. If we're sitting here today now, and in 30 years' time, what do you think those cartoons will look like? We're thinking, we're all sitting in a Meet the Jetsons semi-autonomous. We're not driving to work. We're pretty much flying to work. Is if you were the Elon Musk of 30 years from now, what would it be? What is technology going to do now that's going to transact in that time? It's a bit of a hard question, I know.
But there's one thing you can pretty well predict is that the power of computing is still rising at an exponential rate. Whether it's slowing as Moore's law, but I mean, it could be 2 to the 50 times more powerful than they are today. Like 2 with 50 zeros behind it times more powerful. You think about the bandwidth of the internet and the computing power and the memory and all the rest of it. Just think about the potential that's there for it's. I mean, you can't even sort of predict it. You just think about the computing power and just think about what you could do with that.
I kind of almost think that a computer will know what we want before we even know we want it.
Well, yeah.
We're almost like you talked about how many things you're trying to predict orders in, a couple of weeks' time. You think about that you can say, oh, well, I feel like a bottle of Shiraz and a steak and a relish for dinner tonight. Oh, and there it is, before you've even thought about it, and it's Saturday night and it's there for you. So I think it's very interesting. And I don't know, but...
Do you think that comes from big data capture? I know we touched on it recently or earlier tonight about the power of big dynamics, the power of big uncovering what's part of BI. Is that an opportunity, or is it scary? From a human perspective, as a consumer myself, Do I want to know that I walk into a retailer and they've used facial recognition and they know my typical purchasing patterns are, I'll buy a brown loaf of bread, some Krispy Kremes, maybe something naughty off the cookie aisle. Is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? Because I often see people on Facebook say, oh, I happened to visit a website to talk about wheels on a car. And next time I went onto there, all of a sudden there's 50 retailers saying, oh, if you're looking at wheels on a car, come and visit our website. As humans, as retailers, as kind of consumers ourselves, is that good? And as producers yourself, what's the trade-off?
I think as consumers, I think people are in a state of change that people are going through. And it's a familiarization with how much data people actually know and understand about you. But when it gets really down to it for me, my feeling is, no, I'm not a native of that world. I haven't grown up with those kinds of, individualized communications coming my way. I'm a kid of the 80s and 90s watching broadcast TV, all that sort of stuff. For people that grow up in this world, I think what they'll find is that they are presented with stuff that is relevant and that meets their needs much better and that makes what used to be at times arduous choices, making wrong choices. I think it makes, in some ways, some of those parts of life easier. I do think for those of us that didn't grow up that way, it will always feel like an intrusion. But I think generationally that'll change.
I think in some ways you like to feel special. So it'd be nice, to know that something is tailored to you. It's nice for if I'm say for our business, you're a wine club member and you've walked through the door and someone recognizes you and they know that you buy the Chardonnay and the Sauvignon Blanc, but that person who's welcoming you probably doesn't know off the top of their head that you buy Chardonnay and Sauvignon Blanc. They've gone and found that data somewhere and looked it up and now know to welcome you like that. So in some ways, if you've committed to a brand and you want to be part of it, that's an authentic brand and you want to buy from people, I think you're okay with that part. Well, for me, I'd be okay with that part. But then the bit, like you say, I haven't grown up with either, the bit where it's targeting at you is a different feeling, I think.
Just one thing, I think that it gives the ability to be much more sophisticated with your marketing. So it's not about saying, here, have this chutney. I think about wines, and I remember a few years ago, there was a wine brand, and they had playlists for the different wines, music playlists. And I thought, that's really cool. It's about, they're thinking about the consumer. They're not thinking about, how do I sell the wine? Thinking about, what does the consumer need? And, the temptation is to use technology in a very primitive sledgehammer way. That's the sort of thing that needs to happen. We need to be able to understand people's lifestyles and what they need and help them, not just sell them chutney.
I think to some extent, people are using the technology today with an old world mindset towards advertising and marketing. And instead of using the technology and the individualization that might be really valuable and meaningful, what they're doing is going, oh, I heard, or I know you've Googled for whatever it was. I can remember having a discussion with a friend of mine over a couple of drinks about my dream guitar that I wanted to buy. And then there it is on Facebook advertised to me. There's no way I'm going to buy that guitar, right? It's not within the realms of possibility. But to me, that's the really kind of sledgehammer way of doing it. That's not nuanced. That's just saying, well, as soon as this person says these words, searches these words, here's my standardized message. But I think when that gets to the stage where you can actually start to build a relationship with me and communicate with me in a meaningful way, add value to the experience that I have with your brand or your business through those advertising channels, that's when I think it'll be when people will be more okay with it.
So the last question, and perhaps just an extension to this one, is more about where do we draw the line? Do you think that there's a bit of a pushback against technology in that regards to being controlled or the feeling of being controlled? That's not an easy question there, is there?
No, it's not an easy question. And I think Australians do push back a bit. But if you look at, in my experience, the COVID app, we had the Prime Minister stand up there and said, if we have 7 million people download the app, the pubs will be open soon. So I reckon my husband definitely went and downloaded the app.
I had 3 phones. I downloaded it 3 times.
So there are certain ways to sell a message. But in the general as a whole, I do think there is some hesitation about technology, but also there's some technology that makes your life more convenient. So
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think
know.
that's fair. I think there is pushback from parts of the. I mean, I think there's always going to be pushback.
Mm.
I think the thing that maybe people haven't been great at is transparency about what the data does and is for and will be used for. And I appreciate that burying it in a privacy policy ticks a box, but it doesn't actually share with a person how the data they might allow to be captured is actually going to be used. And I think for a lot of people, they don't really have a problem with the data being captured. It's a matter of what then of that data. I don't mind that you have my data, but I need to know what you're using it for and how it benefits me to give it to you.
Yeah, or who can use it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think we should be pushing for harder personal identifiable information to be legislated for in the same way as Europe and California and Washington have developed personal privacy legislation? Is that something we should be doing, or is it? Should be right, mate.
I went to a presentation of this. It was talking about, there was an American retailer who came and talked in Australia a few years ago, and they were talking about how they were using data to position products. And for example, he put up a shopping an invoice of a list of person, and he said, "What's wrong with this shopping list?" And we're looking at it. He said, "Where's the 600ml Coke? We know from the data that they bought this. They should have got the Coke. You need to have the Coke right there in the impulse area, because they will buy a Coke if you put it there." And that was the sort of level of. So it's not really about their name or the person so much, or their phone number or whatever. It's actually their behaviours. How do you action the behaviours that you know that they've got a propensity for? And if they buy nappies, they're also going to buy frozen pizza and stuff like that. That's all very sophisticated. All that data mining they're doing, that's really where the money can be made.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of that's anonymized. So I mean, but having said that, though, I went to a presentation with a company, a Woolworths-owned company. It specialises in data, and they have linked up with Foxtel and with a bank, and they're combining data from all these things. So they know when you have a loyalty card with the supermarket, they know a lot about you, a scary amount about you. Yeah. They know everything you buy, and I think people would absolutely be shocked.
Do you think that follows through with digital payments? Do you think now that we're moving more and more, I mean, it's particularly now with COVID, away from physical currency, we're moving into digital payments? Is that just another opportunity for retailers and banks to produce analytics about us and make assumptions about lifestyle?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And if you've got a Google Pixel phone, you know.
I thought it was Huawei.